Wealth begins in the mind. Introduction. Before you begin this journey, pause for a moment and consider something simple but profound. Everything you have ever achieved, every change you have ever made, and every improvement in your life began the same way, with a thought. A single idea, held long enough and clearly enough, has the power to redirect the course of an entire lifetime. This audiobook is built on that principle. It teaches that wealth is not something outside of you, waiting to be discovered. It is something that starts within you, waiting to be expressed. Charles F. Haanel, author of The Master Key System, explained that the world within creates the world without. He meant that your financial life is not shaped by luck or environment or chance, but by the dominant thoughts you accept as true, the pictures you hold in your imagination, the beliefs you allow into your subconscious, and the habits you live by each day. In the next hour, you will learn how this inner process works, step by step, clearly, calmly, and without exaggeration. You will understand how thought creates direction, how imagination creates form, how faith gives life to your ideas, how action expresses your inner decisions, how habit shapes your destiny, and how gratitude expands everything you touch. This is not about forcing wealth through effort or straining for results. It is about aligning your thinking with the principles that govern all successful lives. If you have ever felt limited by your past or discouraged by your circumstances, this audiobook will show you why those limits are not permanent. You will discover that true wealth is not a matter of opportunity, but of consciousness. And once consciousness changes, circumstances must eventually change with it. As you listen, allow the ideas to settle into your mind gently. You do not need to force belief or rush your understanding. Just listen with openness. Let the principles reveal themselves. Let the logic take hold naturally. By the time you finish, you will see your financial life from a different perspective, not as something you must chase, but as something you can create with intention, clarity, and confidence. Welcome to wealth as a thought-based process. Your inner transformation begins now. Chapter 1. The world within creates the world without. Every person lives in two worlds. There is the world you see around you, your finances, your opportunities, your relationships, your results. And there is the world you carry within you, your thoughts, your beliefs, your expectations, and the ideas you consistently hold in mind. Most people spend their entire lives trying to change the outer world while ignoring the inner one. They work harder, push harder, struggle harder, yet very little changes. Why? Because they are operating in the wrong direction. They are trying to change effects without ever addressing the cause. Charles F. Haanel stated the principle clearly. The world within creates the world without. Your external conditions are not random. They are expressions of the dominant patterns that exist in your mind. This idea is simple, but it is powerful enough to transform your financial life completely. Your thoughts are not passive. Your beliefs are not neutral. Your inner life is not separate from your outer results. The thoughts you repeatedly hold form the blueprint from which the circumstances of your life are constructed. Everything begins in the mind long before it appears in the physical world. You do not build a house without a mental picture of it. You do not start a business without first imagining it. You do not reach a goal without first seeing some version of it in your mind. Thought is the first step. Action comes second. Results come last. When you understand this order, wealth begins to make sense. You are not wealthy because of what happens outside of you. You become wealthy because of what happens inside you, and the world simply reflects that inner state, just as a mirror reflects your appearance. This concept has been misunderstood by many. Some believe that thought alone, without effort, will bring them everything they desire. Others dismiss thought entirely, believing only in action. Both positions are incomplete. Thought is the cause. Action is the channel. Results are the effect. If the cause is weak or contradictory, the action becomes scattered and ineffective. If the cause is strong, clear, and consistent, the action becomes purposeful and aligned, and results follow naturally. This is why two people can work the same hours in the same field with the same tools, and yet one prospers while the other struggles. The difference is not effort, the difference is consciousness. The inner world determines the outer outcome. If your inner state is dominated by fear, you will find reasons to confirm that fear. If it is dominated by scarcity, you will behave in ways that reinforce scarcity. If it is dominated by doubt, your actions will carry hesitation and opportunities will pass you by. But when your inner state is one of clarity, confidence, and expectation, the same world begins to look different. You notice openings that others overlook. You make decisions that align with your goals. You stop resisting opportunities and begin acting on them. You behave like a person who expects good things, and so good things move toward you. This is not superstition. This is psychology. This is the mechanism of the mind, as Haanel taught it. And it is the first step in understanding wealth as a thought-based process. Before you can change your financial life, you must examine the thoughts that dominate your inner life. Ask yourself, what do I truly believe about money? What do I expect for myself financially? Do I see abundance as natural or as rare? Do I believe I am capable of achieving wealth? Do I allow myself to imagine a better financial future? Your honest answers to these questions reveal the blueprint from which your outer life has been built. Nothing in your financial world can change until this inner blueprint changes first. It is not enough to wish for wealth. Wishes do not impress the subconscious mind. It is not enough to repeat affirmations without conviction. Words alone do nothing. But when a new idea becomes your dominant belief, when it becomes the expectation you return to naturally, your entire mental atmosphere changes. And when the atmosphere changes, the conditions must eventually change with it. This is the essence of Haanel's teaching, and it is the foundation of every success philosophy that followed. You are not controlled by your environment. You are controlled by the ideas you accept as true. The moment you change those ideas, the environment begins to rearrange itself accordingly. Your financial life is not separate from your inner life. Your results are not separate from your thoughts. Your future is not separate from your beliefs. To create wealth, you must begin at the only place wealth truly begins, your consciousness. Once you understand this, you stop fighting the world outside and begin refining the world within. You stop blaming circumstances and begin shaping them. You stop waiting for change and begin causing it. This is the first step, and it is the most important one. Wealth is created in the mind before it is created in the world. Everything else builds on this foundation. Chapter 2. The Mind as Creative Power. Once you understand that the world within shapes the world without, the next step is recognizing the mechanism through which this happens. That mechanism is your mind's creative power. Most people underestimate their minds. They think of it as a place where thoughts simply appear, random, disconnected, and often unwanted. But Haanel, along with every major metaphysical teacher of the last century, explained something far more profound. Your mind is not a passive observer. Your mind is a creative instrument. Every thought you hold with emotion and repetition sends a signal into the deeper layers of your consciousness and into the universe itself. Most of the great inventors, thinkers, and self-made individuals throughout history understood this long before science began to explore it. Your mind shapes your perception. Your perception shapes your decisions. Your decisions shape your results. This is a creative sequence, not a mechanical one. Think of it this way. You never act in contradiction to your dominant thoughts. If you believe opportunities are rare, you won't pursue them. If you believe success is difficult, you will take hesitant, inconsistent action. If you believe wealth is for other people, you will unconsciously sabotage the chances that come your way. But when you adopt the belief that your thoughts have creative power, something important changes. You begin to think deliberately. You begin to choose thoughts the same way a craftsman chooses tools, purposefully, carefully, and with respect for the outcome they will produce. This is what Haanel meant when he said that all power is within. He did not mean power in a mystical or exaggerated sense. He meant that your thoughts initiate the causes that lead to your results. The person who understands this moves through life differently. They do not rush. They do not react impulsively. They do not fall victim to external circumstances. They pause, they think, and they create their inner state consciously before taking action. This calm control of the mind is one of the greatest advantages a person can have. It allows you to respond to situations instead of being pulled by them. It allows you to decide how you will think instead of letting emotion dictate your direction. It allows you to maintain a stable inner world even when the outer world feels uncertain. In practical terms, the creative power of your mind expresses itself through 3 channels. 1. What do you consistently think? Your habitual thoughts create the atmosphere of your life. A person who constantly thinks of obstacles will find them everywhere. A person who trains their mind to think in terms of solutions will begin seeing possibilities where others see problems. 2. What do you emotionally accept as true? Emotion gives thought its strength. A thought backed by fear can create negative conditions. A thought backed by confidence can create extraordinary opportunities. The emotion is the amplifier. It gives the subconscious mind a clear signal of what you are expecting. 3. What do you imagine? The pictures you hold in your mind are received by your subconscious as instructions. If you dwell on failure, it moves you toward it. If you dwell on wealth, it begins organizing your behavior, your habits, and your awareness toward that direction. This is not fantasy. It's a psychological mechanism. You notice what you expect. You act according to the beliefs you hold. You interpret circumstances in ways that match your inner state. Your mind is always producing something. The question is whether you are producing deliberately or by default. Most people live by default. They allow old beliefs, fears, memories, and assumptions to shape their thinking. And because they think the same way every day, their life looks the same every day. But the moment you begin thinking consciously, the moment you choose your thoughts the way a builder chooses materials, you step into the creative role that Haanel taught. This brings us to a key truth. Riches do not start with effort. They start with a thought that is repeated until it becomes a belief. Once that belief takes root, action begins to change naturally. You move with more confidence. You see opportunities faster. You speak differently. You make decisions from a position of inner strength instead of fear. This is the real reason people who work less can sometimes achieve more. Their minds are aligned with their goals. Their thoughts support their actions. Their beliefs support their behavior. They are not divided within themselves. Thought that is clear, consistent, and confidently held becomes a creative force. It initiates ideas, shapes decisions, and influences outcomes in ways that often appear surprising to those who don't understand the process. But once you understand it, it becomes the most natural thing in the world. You do not become wealthy because of luck. You do not become wealthy because of chance. You do not become wealthy because of circumstances. You become wealthy because your mind operates from a clear, deliberate, positive direction, and you act consistently from that place. This is the beginning of mastery. And mastery becomes far more powerful when you learn to work with the second part of the mechanism, the subconscious mind. In the next chapter, you will discover why the subconscious determines the majority of your results and how to impress it with ideas of wealth and possibility. Chapter 3: Wealth and the Subconscious Mind. If the conscious mind is the selector of ideas, the subconscious mind is the builder. It is the part of you that takes the thoughts you repeat, the beliefs you hold, and the images you dwell on, and turns them into conditions, behaviors, and outcomes. Haanel described the subconscious as the connecting point between the individual mind and the universal mind. The deeper intelligence that sustains life, organizes all growth, and moves the entire system of existence. You don't have to accept this in a mystical way. You only need to understand its practical function. Your subconscious controls your habits, your expectations, and your automatic responses, and these three elements determine more than 90% of your results. Most people never realize this. They try to change their lives through willpower alone. They try to force new behaviors on top of old beliefs. They try to act in ways that contradict the ideas their subconscious mind has already accepted. And in time, the old beliefs win. Not because the person is weak, but because the subconscious is stronger than conscious effort when the two are in conflict. The subconscious is always shaping your life. The question is it shaping it according to old patterns, or according to the new wealth consciousness you want to build? To understand its role, consider this. The subconscious does not judge. It accepts. Whatever idea you repeat with emotion or frequency, the subconscious accepts as true. This is why fear becomes self-fulfilling. It is why doubt weakens action. It is why people who constantly worry about money often experience the very shortages they fear. Not because life is cruel, but because the subconscious expresses what it has been taught to believe. The subconscious mind does not analyze or argue. It simply carries out the mental instructions it receives. If you repeatedly tell yourself, "I never have enough money," you are teaching the subconscious to expect shortage, and it shapes your actions, perceptions, and decisions accordingly. If you repeatedly think, "Things always go wrong for me," you are training your subconscious to anticipate difficulty, and it finds ways to match that belief. The subconscious believes whatever you impress upon it, and once it believes something, it expresses it through you automatically. This is why Haanel emphasized control of thought and mental discipline, not to suppress emotion, but to prevent the subconscious from being programmed by fear, memory, or negative expectation. Just as soil does not care what seed you plant, the subconscious does not care what idea you repeat. It grows whatever you give it, whether it helps you or harms you. Now, here is the key point. Wealth is a subconscious identity before it is a financial condition. If you feel unworthy of wealth, you will unconsciously sabotage opportunities. If you believe money is difficult to earn, your behavior will mirror that belief. If you believe rich people are different, your subconscious will always place wealth outside of your reach. But if you build the belief that money responds to your mindset, that you are capable of creating prosperity, and that abundance is natural, your subconscious adopts these convictions and begins guiding your actions in ways that support them. People call this intuition luck or momentum. It is simply the subconscious doing its job. To impress the subconscious with the idea of wealth, 3 principles matter most. 1. Repetition. The subconscious responds to what it hears most often. This is why consistent thought is essential. Sporadic effort does not create change, persistent ideas do. 2. Emotion. A thought combined with feeling is far more powerful than words alone. Confidence amplifies an idea. Fear amplifies it as well. Choose carefully. 3. Imagery. The subconscious thinks in pictures. When you visualize yourself handling money confidently, achieving goals, or living with ease, the subconscious accepts these images as instructions. These 3 elements are the foundation of mental transformation. You cannot change your financial life from the outside in. It always happens from the inside out. And once the subconscious accepts a new financial identity, your behavior changes naturally, without forcing, fighting, or struggling. You begin noticing new paths. You begin feeling more capable. You begin meeting the right people at the right time. You begin making decisions that align with your goals. You begin moving with a calm confidence that others can feel. This is not imagination. This is the subconscious expressing your new internal blueprint. Haanel was very clear about this. When the subconscious accepts an idea, it becomes the controlling force of your life. You no longer try to create wealth with effort alone. You create it through alignment. And alignment is far more powerful than effort. In the next chapter, you will learn how to develop the single skill that gives you full access to this power. Concentration. The ability to hold one idea long enough for the subconscious to accept it. Chapter 4. Concentration. The power to direct thought. If the subconscious mind builds your inner blueprint, then concentration is the tool you use to write that blueprint with clarity and precision. Haanel placed extraordinary importance on this skill because without it, the mind becomes unfocused, reactive, and easily influenced by external circumstances. Concentration is not strain, it is not force, it is not the tightening of your mind around an idea. Concentration is simply the ability to hold one thought steadily, long enough for the subconscious to recognize it as something you genuinely intend to create. In a world filled with distractions, this ability is rare. People drift from one idea to another, one goal to another, one fear to another. Their attention jumps constantly, and their results reflect that scattered direction. If your mind cannot hold the picture of what you want, your life cannot hold it either. Wealth requires mental consistency. You must be able to think about your goal without being pulled away by doubt or fear. You must be able to focus on the possibility even when the outer situation appears unchanged. This is concentration, not force but steadiness. The mind is like a lens. When scattered, light weakly spreads in all directions, but when focused, the same light becomes powerful enough to cut through steel. Your thoughts work the same way. Scattered thought produces scattered results. Focused thought produces powerful results. This is not positive thinking, it is directed thinking. Now let's bring this into practical terms. 1. Concentration determines what ideas enter the subconscious. The subconscious does not respond to occasional wishes or weak hopes. It responds to the ideas you hold repeatedly, especially when those ideas are held without internal conflict. Most people allow contradictory thoughts to dominate their inner life. I want wealth, followed by, I don't know if I can get it. I want success, followed by, what if I fail? I believe abundance is possible, followed by, but nothing ever works out for me. This contradiction weakens the mental picture. It sends mixed signals to the subconscious, and mixed signals produce mixed results. Concentration eliminates this inner conflict. It allows you to hold a clear mental picture long enough for it to take root. 2. Concentration builds mental discipline. Discipline is not forcing the mind, it is guiding it. A person without concentration is controlled by environment, circumstance, and emotion. Whatever happens outside determines their inner state. But a person who develops concentration begins to reverse this dynamic. They think on purpose, they choose their ideas, they maintain their direction regardless of external noise. Haanel taught that mental discipline is the foundation of every strong character and every successful life. It is not reserved for the gifted. It is a skill anyone can develop with practice. 3. Concentration strengthens belief. Belief is not built through intensity. It is built through consistency. When you repeatedly hold the image of wealth, the subconscious begins to accept it as natural, not because it is forced, but because the mind becomes familiar with it. This is why rehearsing wealth internally is so powerful. You begin to feel as though the result is possible even before anything changes outside, and once the subconscious accepts this feeling, your behavior aligns with it automatically. 4. Concentration amplifies imagination. The subconscious responds strongest to mental images, but imagination cannot work effectively if the mind jumps from one picture to another. Concentration allows you to hold one scene long enough for the subconscious to capture it. Imagine yourself handling money with confidence. Imagine opportunities flowing toward you. Imagine yourself succeeding in the situations that used to intimidate you. Do not rush. Do not analyze. Do not evaluate. Your job is simply to hold the picture. The subconscious will take care of the rest. 5. Concentration builds emotional stability. A person with a disciplined mind does not get pulled by every fear, every doubt, or every negative report. They are steady, calm, directed. This stability is essential for financial success. Opportunities require clarity, not panic. Strategies require patience, not urgency. Growth requires consistency, not emotional volatility. A concentrated mind is an emotionally stable mind. How to practice concentration. Haanel did not believe in complicated techniques. He recommended the simplest possible practice. Sit in a comfortable position. Relax your body. Choose a single idea, such as your financial goal. Hold it gently, without strain. If your mind wanders, bring it back calmly. Do this for a few minutes each day. Over time, something remarkable happens. Your mind becomes your servant, not your master. You gain control over your focus. You direct your attention deliberately. You become capable of holding a thought long enough for it to influence the subconscious. Once you develop concentration, the entire process of wealth building becomes easier. Why? Because wealth requires a consistent mental state, and consistency comes from concentration. A person who can hold a thought steadily can create anything they desire. A person who cannot will rely on chance, luck, and external circumstances. Master your focus, and you master the direction of your life. In the next chapter, we expand this understanding further by exploring the tool that makes concentrated thought powerful. Imagination, the bridge between the mind and the material world. Chapter 5. Imagination, the blueprint of wealth. Imagination is one of the most misunderstood faculties of the human mind. People often associate it with fantasy, daydreaming, or escapism. But to every great thinker, from Haanel to Murphy to Nightingale, imagination is the workshop of creation. It is the place where every achievement begins. Nothing you see in the world today existed before it existed first in someone's imagination. Every business, every invention, every career, every goal, every fortune, each began as an inner picture held by a person who understood the power of their own mind. Imagination is not a luxury. It is a necessity. It is the mechanism through which the mind creates form. And because the subconscious mind accepts images more strongly than words, imagination becomes the most direct way to impress wealth consciousness into the deeper mind. Haanel taught that imagination is the faculty that bridges your conscious ideas with the universal mind, the source of all possibilities. But you don't need to accept this in metaphysical terms. You only need to recognize how imagination shapes your psychology. You behave according to the pictures you hold in your mind. If you imagine difficulty, you act with hesitation. If you imagine success, you act with confidence. If you imagine yourself overwhelmed, you avoid action. If you imagine yourself capable, you step forward. Your imagination influences how you feel, how you think, and how you respond to opportunities. It guides your behavior long before the results appear in your life. Most people use imagination the wrong way. They imagine negative outcomes, worst-case scenarios, financial struggle or failure. And because the subconscious accepts these images, their actions begin to align with these pictures, often unconsciously. The mind always seeks to express what it imagines most vividly. If you want to change your financial life, you must direct your imagination toward a clearer, more empowering picture of wealth. This is not fantasy. This is preparation. This is training the subconscious mind to expect success. And what the subconscious expects, it moves toward. Let's break this into key principles so you understand exactly how imagination plays a role in wealth creation. 1. Imagination creates a model for the subconscious. Haanel explained that the subconscious builds images into conditions. It is the silent architect that works from the blueprint you give it. Words alone often fail because words do not penetrate the subconscious unless they are supported by feeling. But images, especially those repeated with calm and confidence, leave a deep impression. When you imagine yourself handling money wisely, achieving goals, or living with financial ease, you are giving the subconscious a model to follow. 2. Imagination must be specific, not vague. A vague idea produces vague results. A specific mental picture produces clear direction. For example, I want more money is not a mental picture. It is a wish. But seeing yourself paying your bills comfortably, saving consistently, growing your income, and feeling confident around money, these images give the subconscious something tangible to work with. The mind responds to clarity. 3. Imagination must be calm, not forced. You do not need intensity or strain. The mind works best in a relaxed state. A clear, steady image held in calm awareness has more power than 100 strained attempts at positive thinking. Wealth imagination should feel natural, like rehearsing a future you expect to experience. 4. Imagination changes your self-image. Your financial life rises or falls to the level of your self-image. If you see yourself as a capable, resourceful, financially intelligent person, you will behave accordingly. If you see yourself as limited, unlucky, or overwhelmed, you will act from that identity. Imagination is the fastest way to reshape your self-image. By repeatedly seeing yourself in new situations, the subconscious eventually adopts the new identity as truth. Once identity shifts, habits shift naturally. Confidence grows. Decisions improve. Opportunities appear less threatening. The outer world begins to mirror the inner picture. 5. Imagination activates the law of attention. You notice what matches your expectations. Your mind filters reality according to what you imagine repeatedly. If you imagine wealth, you begin noticing ways to pursue it. If you imagine financial confidence, you begin seeing steps that reinforce it. If you imagine growth, you begin recognizing opportunities that align with it. Your attention is one of your greatest assets, and imagination directs it. 6. You do not need to imagine the final outcome. Start with what feels believable. Some people attempt to imagine extreme wealth immediately, but if the picture feels unrealistic, the subconscious rejects it. Begin with images that feel natural and attainable. You are confidently managing your money. You are increasing your income gradually. You are receiving good opportunities. You are handling financial decisions calmly. You feel worthy of abundance. These images build emotional acceptance. From there, you can expand to larger goals. How to practice imagination deliberately. Haanel's approach was simple. Sit quietly. Relax your body. Breathe naturally. Bring to mind an image of yourself succeeding financially. See it as though it were happening now. Do not rush. Do not force. Just observe the image calmly and allow yourself to feel its truth. A few minutes of this practice each day is enough to begin transforming your subconscious conditioning. You will know you are succeeding when the image begins to feel familiar. Not distant, not forced, not impossible, but familiar. When the picture feels natural, the subconscious has begun accepting it, and once it accepts, it expresses. Imagination turns invisible ideas into visible outcomes. It is the bridge between the world within and the world without, and it prepares the mind for the next essential step, faith, the emotional certainty that what you imagine is achievable. Chapter 6. Faith. The inner certainty that activates wealth. If imagination creates the blueprint, faith is the power that energizes it. Without faith, even the most vivid mental picture remains an idea. With faith, that same picture becomes a living force moving you toward its fulfillment. Faith, as Haanel explained, is not blind belief. It is not wishful thinking. It is not hoping for the best while fearing the worst. Faith is emotional certainty, the quiet conviction that what you are creating in your inner world has a rightful place in your outer world. Faith is the alignment of thought, emotion, and expectation. When these three work together, the subconscious accepts the idea completely, and your actions begin to express it naturally. This chapter is not about belief in a religious sense. It is about understanding the psychological and metaphysical role that faith plays in financial success. Let's break down what faith truly means within the context of wealth creation. 1. Faith is the emotional acceptance of an idea. The conscious mind chooses an idea. The imagination gives that idea form. But faith is what allows the subconscious to accept it. You may repeat affirmations endlessly. You may visualize your goals daily. You may read motivational books every week. But unless you feel the idea to be possible, the subconscious will not act on it. Emotion is the language of the subconscious. Faith is the emotional signature that says, "This is true for me." A thought without faith is like a seed without water. It contains the potential, but cannot grow. 2. Faith produces calm expectation. When you have faith in a goal, you no longer worry about how or when it will happen. You no longer strain or rush. Faith creates a quiet inner confidence. You think clearly. You make decisions steadily. You remain undisturbed by temporary setbacks. Most people doubt themselves at every step. They start a goal with enthusiasm, but lose confidence the moment circumstances challenge them. Faith allows you to persist with clarity, even when the evidence has not yet appeared. 3. Faith is developed through repetition, not force. You do not command yourself to have faith. You build faith by repeating ideas until they feel natural. Just as a memory becomes stronger the more often it is recalled, a belief becomes stronger the more often it is repeated with feeling. If you repeatedly imagine yourself financially capable and stable, if you rehearse the image of confidence, growth, and opportunity, your subconscious begins to accept these ideas as familiar. Familiarity becomes comfort. Comfort becomes belief. Belief becomes faith. Faith is simply habitual confidence in an idea. 4. Faith dissolves inner conflict. Without faith, the mind becomes divided. Part of you wants wealth. Part of you fears change. Part of you believes abundance is possible. Part of you doubts your abilities. This division weakens your inner blueprint and interrupts the creative process. Faith unifies the mind. It brings your thoughts, emotions, and expectations into harmony. And what the mind believes without conflict, it begins to express. 5. Faith influences your behavior and decisions. People often overlook the practical power of faith. Faith changes the way you carry yourself. It influences your tone of voice, your body language, and your level of initiative. It gives you the courage to act on your ideas. It helps you see opportunities where others see obstacles. Faith turns hesitation into action and action into progress. This is why individuals with strong inner conviction achieve more with fewer resources than those who doubt themselves, even when they have every advantage. Confidence multiplies the effectiveness of every action you take. 6. Faith attracts the right conditions. In psychological terms, faith tunes your attention to what helps you. In metaphysical terms, faith aligns you with opportunities that match your inner state. You notice what you expect, you act according to what you believe, you move toward what you feel confident about. This alignment produces results that seem almost effortless. To the outside world, the process may look like luck, but to those who understand the role of faith, it is simply the mind acting through the subconscious to create conditions consistent with inner certainty. 7. Faith is strengthened by small successes. You don't need an unshakable belief from the very beginning. You only need enough faith to take the next step. When you take a step and it produces even a small improvement, the subconscious records that success. It becomes easier to believe in the next step. Faith grows naturally when reinforced by experience. This is why it is better to start small, build momentum, and expand your confidence over time. How to cultivate faith deliberately. You do not need intensity or dramatic effort. You need repetition, calmness, and consistency. Here is a simple method rooted in Haanel's teaching. Choose a clear financial idea, such as earning more, feeling confident, or managing money wisely. Imagine the result calmly for a few moments each day. Speak affirming statements that reinforce the idea. Act on small opportunities that align with the idea. Record small wins to strengthen your belief. Return to the feeling of calm certainty whenever doubt arises. Faith is not a single event. It is a cultivated state of mind. As your faith strengthens, your subconscious begins working in harmony with your goals. Your inner world supports your outer actions. You begin moving confidently toward wealth rather than away from it. Faith is the emotional engine behind the mental blueprint, and once that engine is activated, it leads naturally into the next step. Action. Not a desperate effort, but action aligned with your new mental state. Chapter 7. Action. The outer expression of an inner decision. When the mind has accepted an idea and faith has taken root, action becomes the natural next step. But this action is very different from the frantic effort most people associate with success. It is not forceful, it is not desperate, it is not the kind of restless movement that comes from fear or insecurity. True action, the kind that produces lasting wealth, flows from an inner knowing that the result already belongs to you. Haanel was clear about this. Every act should be the outer expression of an inner decision. When the inner world is aligned, your actions carry a quiet confidence. They are not rushed. They are not scattered. They do not come from the fear of missing out or the pressure to prove something. They come from a calm recognition that you are moving towards something that is already unfolding. People often misunderstand the relationship between thought and action. They think thought replaces action. It does not. Thought prepares the soil. Action plants the seed. Thought builds the blueprint. Action lays the foundation. But if the action is taken without the right mindset, it becomes inefficient, like hammering nails into a house that has no design. The person may be moving, but not progressing. When faith is established, the quality of your action changes. You begin doing the right things at the right time. You make decisions with more clarity and less hesitation. You start seeing opportunities where you previously saw obstacles. You become more aware of paths that support your goals. You stop wasting energy on things that do not matter. The mind becomes selective, and your behavior reflects that selectivity. Many people struggle financially because their actions do not match their desires. They want abundance, but act from fear. They want opportunity, but cling to comfort. They want growth, but avoid change. Their actions contradict their intentions, and the subconscious mind follows the action more closely than the wish. This is why aligned action is essential. Aligned action means you act in harmony with the state of mind you are building. If you are cultivating a wealthy mindset, you must act like a person who believes in their own ability to succeed. You must speak with the tone of someone who expects good outcomes. You must approach your work with the confidence of someone who knows their efforts will bear fruit. You must step into opportunities the way a capable person would, not the way a doubtful person might. You do not need to know the entire path, you only need to recognize and move toward the next step. Clarity grows as you walk. Confidence grows as you take small risks. Momentum builds as you follow through. The subconscious mind responds to this movement and strengthens the new identity you are forming. Every action becomes evidence, and that evidence reinforces your belief. You will notice something interesting as you begin taking action from this state of mind. Tasks that once felt overwhelming become manageable. Challenges that once intimidated you feel less threatening. Choices that once confused you become simpler. This change does not occur because the outer world has shifted. It occurs because your inner world is no longer resisting the process. When you act with faith, you do not wait for perfect conditions. You do not expect guarantees. You do not delay until fear disappears. You recognize that fear fades only when confronted. The subconscious mind grows stronger only when you move. You begin to feel a quiet momentum that carries you forward. The more you act, the easier action becomes. The more you follow through, the more your identity shifts. Wealth grows through aligned movement. It grows through consistency, not bursts of intensity. It grows through decisions that reflect the person you want to become, not the person you used to be. Every day offers small openings, a choice to learn something new, to reach out to someone, to complete a task with excellence, to plan your finances, to elevate your standards. These small actions accumulate and shape your results in ways the world often describes as luck. Luck is often nothing more than preparation meeting opportunity, and preparation comes from the way you think, feel, and act long before the opportunity arrives. The person who has built a wealthy mindset recognizes openings that others overlook. They step into situations that others hesitate to approach. They make decisions from belief, not fear. Their action is informed by the inner blueprint, and the world responds accordingly. There is a point in this process where something subtle happens. You stop acting from the hope that things will work out, and you begin acting from the quiet understanding that they already are. This shift changes everything. You no longer push. You no longer chase. You no longer overexert yourself trying to force progress. You work, but with purpose. You move, but with direction. You act, but with calm certainty. This kind of action is efficient. It is powerful. It is sustainable. It allows you to grow without burning out. It allows you to advance without feeling overwhelmed. It allows you to build wealth without sacrificing your peace. And it aligns perfectly with the natural laws Haanel described. When thought, imagination, faith, and action work together, results are inevitable. Each step reinforces the next, and the entire system becomes self-sustaining. You begin to build not only wealth, but the identity of someone capable of maintaining and expanding it. The next chapter takes this even further by exploring the role of habit and why consistent behavior, not occasional bursts, determines your long-term financial destiny. Chapter 8. Habit, the silent architect of your financial life. Every meaningful change in your life becomes permanent the moment it turns into a habit. You can think positively for a day, visualize for a week, or take inspired action for a month, but unless those behaviors become habitual, the old patterns eventually return. Haanel understood this deeply. He knew that the subconscious mind expresses itself through habit, and because the subconscious controls most of your behavior, your habits are a perfect reflection of the ideas you've accepted as true. You do not rise to the level of your intentions. You fall to the level of your habits. This is not discouraging. It is liberating. It means that wealth is not the result of sudden luck or rare opportunities. It is the result of daily behaviors that gradually shape your financial destiny. Most people underestimate the power of habit because habits feel small. Waking up a little earlier, managing money with a bit more attention, reading instead of scrolling, planning instead of reacting. These actions do not feel dramatic, but they accumulate. They compound. They quietly transform the trajectory of your life. Just as drops of water carve canyons in stone over time, your habits carve the path your life follows. Every habit you reinforce strengthens your identity, and every identity you reinforce strengthens your habits. If you habitually think like a capable, resourceful person, your behavior reflects that capability. If you habitually see yourself as someone who struggles financially, your actions will reinforce that struggle. The subconscious mind is always seeking consistency between who you believe you are and how you behave. This is why people often sabotage themselves when they try to achieve results that contradict their self-image. If they believe wealth is for others, they will unconsciously avoid opportunities that could improve their life. If they believe success is dangerous or stressful, they will retreat the moment progress begins. The subconscious mind wants harmony between belief and action, even if that harmony keeps you small. The only way to break this cycle is through deliberate habit creation. When you repeat an action long enough, the subconscious accepts it as part of your identity, and when the identity changes, your entire life reorganizes itself around that new self-concept. Wealthy people do not become wealthy because they are naturally different. They become wealthy because they develop habits that support wealth. They think ahead. They manage money with intention. They make decisions based on long-term benefit rather than short-term comfort. They learn continually. They take responsibility for their outcomes, and they repeat these behaviors until they become second nature. Similarly, individuals who live in financial struggle often maintain habits that reinforce that struggle. Without realizing it, they spend impulsively, react emotionally, avoid planning, or delay important actions. None of this happens because they are incapable. It happens because their subconscious has accepted those patterns as normal. Change begins when you introduce a different pattern, even if it feels unfamiliar at first. New habits require conscious effort in the beginning, but once the subconscious mind adopts them, they become automatic. You no longer need willpower to follow through. You simply do what is natural for the person you have become. The key is consistency. Small, repeated actions shape your subconscious far more effectively than large, inconsistent efforts. A few minutes of mental training each day is more powerful than an hour once a month. A simple financial routine practiced regularly builds more stability than big changes attempted inconsistently. Repetition is what reprograms the deeper mind. You will notice something interesting as you introduce new habits. The old patterns will try to pull you back. Not because there is something wrong with you, but because the subconscious prefers familiarity. It seeks what it knows. Even negative patterns feel safe to the subconscious because they are predictable. When you begin changing, the subconscious initially resists, not to harm you, but to preserve what it perceives as normal. This is where awareness becomes essential. If you expect resistance, you will not be discouraged by it. You will simply persist until the new behavior becomes more familiar than the old one. Eventually, the subconscious shifts its loyalty to the new pattern. You may also notice that new habits create new emotions. Confidence grows. Uncertainty decreases. Your sense of control expands. You begin to feel like someone who can handle more. This emotional shift is a sign that your identity is changing, and once identity changes, your results soon follow. There is no financial transformation without habit transformation. You can change your thoughts, strengthen your imagination, cultivate faith, and take inspired action. But if your daily habits contradict your long-term goals, the subconscious will revert to the old blueprint. The inner and outer worlds must match for results to remain. A wealthy consciousness, expressed through consistent habits, becomes a powerful force. It creates progress that feels natural rather than forced. It builds momentum that carries you even when motivation fades. It shapes your decisions and behaviors without requiring effort. This is the quiet power behind every lasting success. The next chapter deepens this understanding even further by exploring how gratitude, awareness, and emotional harmony elevate your entire financial vibration, bringing your inner state and outer results into complete alignment. Chapter 9. Gratitude. The state of mind that multiplies wealth. As your habits begin to align with your intentions, another force enters the picture. Quiet, simple, yet more powerful than most people realize. Gratitude. Not superficial thanks, not polite acknowledgement, not the forced attempt to think positive, but genuine appreciation for what you have, for what you are becoming, and for what is already moving toward you. Haanel considered gratitude a vital component of mental creation because it harmonizes your inner state with abundance. When you are grateful, the mind is no longer restless. It is no longer resistant. It is no longer focused on what is missing. Gratitude shifts your attention from lack to supply, and wherever your attention consistently rests, your life begins to grow. Gratitude is a state of recognition. It recognizes the good that is present. It recognizes the progress you are making. It recognizes opportunities, however small. And this recognition opens the mind to more. You cannot grow what you do not acknowledge. You cannot strengthen what you refuse to see. Gratitude expands your awareness of everything that supports your success. People often believe that they must wait for more wealth before they can feel grateful. The truth is the opposite. Gratitude is the mental condition that prepares you to receive more. When you appreciate what is already in your life, you train the subconscious mind to perceive abundance rather than limitation. You begin noticing openings that once passed unnoticed. You begin seeing value where you previously saw inconvenience. You begin feeling confident in the flow of life. This subtle shift has a profound impact on your financial behavior. A grateful person does not act from desperation. They act calmly. They do not make impulsive choices driven by fear. They make intelligent decisions anchored in stability. They do not chase opportunities blindly. They recognize when to move and when to wait. Gratitude clarifies judgment by removing the emotional noise that clouds perception. There is another dimension to gratitude, one that Haanel emphasized repeatedly. Gratitude is a creative force. It carries a vibration that aligns the mind with abundance. When you feel grateful for what you have, the subconscious interprets that emotion as evidence that you are living in a state of supply. And because the subconscious seeks consistency between inner feeling and outer experience, it moves you toward conditions that match that emotional state. This is not magic, it is mental law. If you constantly feel anxious about money, your subconscious will guide you in ways that reinforce that anxiety. But if you consistently feel appreciative of your progress, your stability, and your possibilities, your subconscious will guide you in ways that reinforce that appreciation. You act differently. You think differently. You choose differently. Gratitude also protects you from the psychological traps that keep many people stuck: envy, comparison, and entitlement. All of these emotions weaken your creative power because they focus attention on what you lack. Gratitude turns your attention inward, toward what is working, what is growing, and what you are capable of. It grounds you in a mindset that supports wealth rather than undermines it. When you make gratitude a habitual state, something important happens. You stop trying to force life. You stop pushing for results with tension or impatience. You begin trusting the process because you feel aligned with it. This trust creates openness, and openness allows good ideas to surface, opportunities to appear, and intuition to guide you more clearly. Gratitude also softens resistance. When people do not feel grateful, they often resist change, even when the change is good. They hold on to old patterns because those patterns feel familiar, but gratitude makes change feel safe. It makes growth feel natural. It makes improvement feel deserved. A grateful mind is receptive rather than defensive. As your gratitude deepens, you begin to realize something profound. Wealth is not only about money. Wealth is a state of mind, a state of freedom, a state of peace. Money is a part of wealth, but it is not the whole of it. True wealth includes clarity, confidence, purpose, and a sense of inner security. Gratitude strengthens all of these. People who practice gratitude daily often experience a noticeable shift in the quality of their life, not because their external circumstances change overnight, but because they start perceiving those circumstances through a more empowered lens. They feel stronger. They feel more capable. They feel more willing to follow through on the actions that matter. And as this inner shift takes place, the outer shift inevitably follows. Your financial results begin reflecting the new mental climate. Opportunities appear, income increases, limitations dissolve. The world responds to the way you think and feel. Gratitude is not passive, it is not complacent. It does not ask you to accept less. Instead, it creates the emotional foundation that allows you to accept more without fear, guilt, or resistance. It prepares your inner world for the abundance you are building through thought, imagination, faith, action, and habit. As you move forward, you will discover that gratitude is not something you practice once. It is something you return to repeatedly until it becomes a natural condition of mind. And when that happens, you reach the final stage of this process, the realization that everything you have learned forms a single, unified principle. Wealth is a thought-based process. Thought-based. Chapter 10. Wealth as a thought-based process. By now the pieces have come together. What began as a simple idea has revealed itself as a complete system, one that explains with clarity why some people rise, why others remain stuck, and why financial transformation begins long before money ever shows up in a person's hands. Wealth is not an accident. It is not granted by luck, external circumstances, or temporary opportunities. Wealth is the outward expression of an inner pattern, a pattern formed by thought, shaped by imagination, accepted by faith, strengthened through action, reinforced through habit, and expanded through gratitude. This understanding places you in a position of extraordinary power. It means that you are not limited by where you started, by what you lacked, by the mistakes you made, or by the circumstances you once believed controlled your life. Your past cannot dictate your future unless you allow it to remain the blueprint of your thinking. The moment you choose a new pattern, a new image, a new belief, your future begins reorganizing itself around that new inner structure. Haanel's teachings circle around one central truth. The world within creates the world without, not once, not occasionally, always. The subconscious mind expresses whatever the conscious mind accepts as true, and the outer world adjusts itself to match the inner expectation. This is why the wealthy remain wealthy even after setbacks, and why the struggling remain struggling even after temporary gains. The conditions follow the consciousness. To understand wealth as a thought-based process is to understand that everything begins with your inner state. If you think from lack, you act from lack. If you think from abundance, you act from abundance. If you imagine limitation, you attract limitation. If you imagine growth, you begin taking steps that lead to growth. Your mind initiates the causes, and life expresses the effects. This is not mystical. It is profoundly practical. Your beliefs shape your decisions. Your expectations influence your behavior. Your emotional state determines how you respond to opportunities. Your habits dictate the direction of your daily life, and all of these factors flow from the thoughts you consistently hold. The person who rises financially is not fundamentally different from the person who does not. They simply think differently. They allow different ideas to dominate their mind. They rehearse a different picture of themselves. They speak differently about their goals. They approach challenges with a different level of expectation. They choose where to place their attention, and that choice becomes the silent force shaping their results. Once you grasp this, you stop waiting for change and begin causing it. You stop trying to fix your outer conditions without addressing the inner patterns that created them. You stop blaming circumstances and start transforming consciousness. You begin to see yourself as the source, not the effect, the cause, not the victim, the creator, not the follower. This understanding does something subtle but powerful. It gives you control. Not the controlling force of fear, anxiety, or rigidity, but the steady control of a person who knows where their life is headed because they know what they are planting in their own mind. You become deliberate, selective, focused. You stop wasting time on thoughts that weaken you. You stop giving attention to fears that shrink your vision. You stop rehearsing problems and begin rehearsing solutions. As this shift strengthens, the nature of your action changes. You move with intention instead of impulse. You choose with clarity instead of confusion. You pursue opportunities that fit your inner direction rather than scattering your energy across everything that appears. You begin to attract situations, people, and possibilities that match your new mental climate. What once felt difficult begins to feel natural. What once felt overwhelming begins to feel manageable. What once felt impossible begins to feel inevitable. This is the moment when wealth no longer feels like something you are chasing. It begins to feel like something you are growing into. The need to force results fades. The fear of losing progress diminishes. The anxiety around uncertainty dissolves. You find yourself calm, steady, and prepared, not because the outer world has changed, but because your inner world has. The true measure of wealth is not the amount of money you possess, but the level of consciousness you maintain. Money can come and go. Opportunities can appear and fade. But a wealthy mindset, one built through thought, imagination, faith, action, habit, and gratitude, remains with you for life. It is the kind of wealth no economic downturn can erase. It is the kind of power no circumstance can remove. It is the kind of inner stability that carries you forward again and again, regardless of what happens outside. When you understand this, you also understand that the process never truly ends. You will continue to grow. You will continue to refine your thinking. You will continue to expand your imagination. You will continue to strengthen your habits, and with each step, the outer results will expand to match the inner growth. Haanel called this mastery. Not mastery over others, but mastery over oneself. The mastery of thought, emotion, and focus. The mastery of expectation. The mastery of the inner world. When you learn to think deliberately, imagine confidently, believe deeply, act consistently, and appreciate fully, wealth is not something you try to create. It is something you naturally express. You now possess the entire structure. You know the direction. You understand the mechanism. And as you apply this understanding, you will begin to see evidence in your daily life. Small improvements at first, then larger ones. A shift in your mood, then a shift in your decisions. A change in your behavior, then a change in your results. This is the process by which thought becomes wealth. It begins as a quiet idea in the mind, echoes into the subconscious through repetition and feeling, expresses itself through action and habit, and returns to you as physical reality. Your financial life is not separate from your inner life. It is the reflection of it. And now, with this knowledge, you are ready to create wealth, not by chance, not by force, but by conscious design.